Wake up in the morning feeling like P. Diddy.
Hey, what up, girl?
Grab my glasses, I'm out the door, I'm gonna hit this city.
Lego.
Whoa!
Welcome to episode 83.
Music.
We're talking music. Now, why did we just do that
music.
car down?
Yeah, that's a quick shout out to Natty
Oh,
from,
Natty.
I think it's the That's Right podcast. I'll actually check that because I've forgotten.
Oh, mate. But
Is
we had
that
a-
sorry? Is that right podcast?
There you
Is
go.
that right podcast? Apologies, Natty. Anyway, she was asking me last time in one of the comments on Instagram to not be shy about my Kesha impersonation for singing. We were talking about karaoke, and I thought, you know what, it's a good way to kick off this episode. So this is going to be all about music. Music in general, music in your ears.
Couple of things you can expect. So we're going to be talking about music and what it makes us feel. Probably a little bit of our favorite music when we use music. The way that happy sort of dopamine hitting music is good. But why you would listen to sad music when you're sad and why it's actually good to do that. So there's a couple of things in there and much more.
Maybe a bit about perfect pitch as well.
Oh,
Yes. Juan's
that is
got
not
it.
perfect pitch.
Juan's got it.
But as always, let's get started with a mere mortal moment. And I'm going to kick us off.
Kick me
so,
off.
I've got my handy notes here today on my phone. And this is a little bit different to the music, but one of the things I was learning this week, be a painkiller and a vitamin. Have you heard the original quote of this?
No.
The original quote of it is, be a painkiller or a vitamin. And it's a big Silicon Valley like saying, and in the product sort of space. And the whole thing is, you should try to be, say, a vitamin, where the picture of that is, it's something that you want to take. So it's not something that you absolutely need. So for instance, imagine, I don't know, a really nice can of tuna. If you wanted to eat, it's vitamins, like a really good thing. It's a positive, it tastes nice, but it's not like ultimately everything you want. Being a painkiller is like, you must have it.
Okay.
But the thing I took away from it, I was listening to a podcast and I was talking about be a painkiller and a vitamin. And it kind of blew my brain a little bit when I was reading and listening to it. And I was like, being a painkiller and a vitamin doesn't have to be like one or the other. ¿Por qué no las dos? Why not both?
Yeah.
It actually made me think, what other areas of life that I was doing where I was like choosing one or the other? But actually, I could have gone for both things. And I won't drown it out, but there was a couple of instances through the week that I was like, actually, I can do this report and go and talk to these people and do X, Y, Z. And I don't have to choose between one or the other. So it kind of took away that mindset of, today I'm going to do this and tomorrow that's what's going to happen. I was like, no, today both of them can happen.
Yeah, nice.
That was
And that's different from multitasking as well. It's, I guess, combining something, but in two different ways. Like, it doesn't have to be at the exact same time.
Yeah, so it's the example of, you can create a product that is servicing, say, an individual's needs in a positive way. Say for like, if you're doing accounting or financial work, it can be a software that is supporting them in a way that's like giving them all this extra additional stuff. So that's a vitamin, but a painkiller way is also helping them, reduce a amount of lawsuits or something like that, because it's got such smarts in that legal perspective.
Yep.
So
Nice. Okay, mine is, the more beautiful the view, the quicker the appreciation decreases. So
okay.
when you are, like, it's not 100% like that, but basically what I'm trying to get at is, when you see, especially nowadays in coronavirus times, where probably people are not traveling as much and they're not exactly where they want to be right now on holiday and whatnot. I was fortunate enough to go to a holiday to a very beautiful place, and I had, the awesome view, and took a, reel of it on Instagram and posted it. But that the appreciation of it goes so quickly. I had that room for 4 days, and I looked at that view for maybe like 7 minutes total.
Yep.
And if you see that on Instagram or wherever you don't know that person or whatnot, you might be like, oh man, this person's having the time of their life. They got this awesome view, blah blah blah. But when it goes away quick. It goes away really quick. So I suppose, if you're looking at that sort of stuff, don't fall into that trap. No matter how beautiful the view is, there's someone who's bored of it.
Yeah.
Like, it's like that adage of it doesn't matter how beautiful that girl is, there's some dude who's sick of and tired of her bullshit.
Yeah.
So, similar thing.
Good. Yeah, well, Nah, I like that. It's a little bit different.
So Juan,
Yep.
I'm going to kick us off this time on a little bit of etymology, because it's interesting, this one. It ties into something you might not have thought about. It was a little bit of news for me. Where does the word music come from?
I don't actually know.
So quite old. Very, very old. Music's been around for I don't know. As long as humans have been humans, really, I suppose.
Yeah, I guess.
And but the actual word comes from the 9 Greek muses. So music comes from the muses.
Muses.
So the inspiration from that. So there was like basically in the Greek mythology, there was 9 muses, and they sort of had it split up to like rhythm, poetry, art, music, and like a couple of different basically inspirations. Where does creativity come from? And so that was basically where it was. What they were saying with that is like that's the original definition. So if you're talking about music, you're talking about the muses. Where does that inspiration come from?
Yep.
How do people create these things? Why do we intrinsically like it? And blah 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 blah. So that's just a little bit of etymology.
I like that. That's very interesting. I've got the non-interesting actual definition.
Okay,
so this was an interesting. Essentially, it was vocal or instrumental sounds, or both, combined in such a way as to produce beauty of form, harmony, and expression of emotion. So it's a little bit broader there than I would have thought with just what you think music, but it is a hard thing to define. So I think that definition, the etymology, it's like, okay, there's like a big, broad range and logical spaces that it could land. When I was looking at this, it was like, yeah, okay, you think about it, it can come from voice, it can come from instruments, but you can kind of stretch it out. I don't know if you've seen those big bowls that you can use to play music with. It's like hand bowls, I think they're called.
Okay, yeah.
But essentially, you can have like... So what defines instrument in this scenario is like anything. As long as there's, it creates some pitch and harmony that can derive some sort of emotional sort of like derivative of it, or even just for listening. Because you might listen to something and be like, well, it's totally horrible, but it's still music to someone else. So it's a description that I was like, okay, defining music, how far we want to take it. I'm going to say we're going to be as broad as possible and talking across it. Obviously, we're going to be talking about what we understand to be like music to us. But if you're out there and you think tossing rocks into a window is music because it's creating some noise that you enjoy, well, we'll leave you to that one.
Well, that's the thing. Like, I'm sure you've seen those videos where it'll be like some kid with 2 pencils and he's like tapping on a table, right? And it's just like clicking sounds essentially, but he's doing it in definitely a rhythmic way. But what's the real difference between that and maybe some trees on a fence outside hitting it from the wind going tick, 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 but obviously it's going to be not as rhythmic as someone applying.
Yeah, but then the other thing that, you could find people suggesting that the natural rhythm of that hitting it also sort of creates a sort of music. And it makes me think, so white noise. Yeah. Would you consider white noise to be music?
No, I personally wouldn't. No.
Right. But white noise, if I'm looking at it by this right, so it's not vocal, nor is it instrumental. But white noise and a couple of other noises like the wind like rushing by or a lake going through, that's creating sound that people could trigger as being like, oh, well, that's sort of like music to my ears because it helps me rest, it helps me sleep. So because it does trigger emotional sort of reactions to it. Now, it's not coming from an instrument or a vocal cord, so is it truly music or is it just sound? So here I'm going to say it's not music.
Yeah.
It's just, it is sound that can trigger emotions, but it isn't specifically created for like a harmony or a pitch created by like an individual, like a human from a instrument or whatever it may be.
Yeah. For me, it would probably, so like personal definition for me. So you can go on YouTube and type in relaxing music.
Yeah.
And you'll get like come up with, nature sounds, a creek in a quiet forest or whatever. So for me, it does need to have that, I guess, like intentionality to it. A good example of this, like right on the border, might be someone like Pogo, if you've heard of him. Australian artist who just captures sounds and then he puts these sounds together to create something that is definitely music.
Yeah. So that's intentionally creating music.
Yeah. But he only uses, like natural sounds or things that it's just like a simple sound, but then he'll put them all together to something that is definitely like rhythmically pleasing to the ears.
So of course, if you listen to TikTok at the very beginning, that is not pleasing to your ears. It wasn't music. It's just just noise.
I don't know about that.
So anyways, my definition, it sounds like we're sort of correct. We're saying music is going to be intentionally created, not just general. So everything else is either, like for us, noise or sound, which is correct.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't confirm it as saying music.
Yep.
So,
that's pretty close.
now, I just want to get started because favorite type of music. I think this is often, I think you ask people this quite often in terms of if you're just interacting with someone, one of the very first things you'll probably come across, whether it's like a new partner in a relationship or friends or whatever, you'll kind of get to like, so what type of music do you listen to?
What do you listen to? Yeah.
So that faithful question, what would you answer?
Okay.
What's your favorite sort of music?
So there's, you can answer that in a myriad of ways.
Yep.
I'm just going to go through a quick history of my favorite bands. So these are probably the stuff like I've listened to the most. If you had to, take in like the bandwidth of everything that I've listened to and say like, okay, the top 1% of those artists, maybe even less, 0.01% or whatever.
Yeah.
Linkin Park, Gorillaz, Blink-182, Red Hot Chili Peppers when I was a bit younger.
Yep.
So that was in my,
in your youth.
Yeah, even before early teens, so like
12,
9 to 13 sort of ish. Had a little bit of Cat Empire, Regurgitator in that same period. After that is like late teens, Flume, Tool, Meg Mac, Hermitude, for example. And then nowadays it's sort of like, I guess, Spanish music, which is interesting. I wouldn't have guessed that. And when I say Spanish music, I essentially mean any music which has Spanish lyrics in it.
Yep.
So Juanes is a pretty good example of that. Bonobo and maybe The Weeknd. So
there you go.
So, a little bit varied. I think there's a little bit of everything in there.
There is. And this is an interesting thing. I think when this question gets asked, you can have two opposing, you generally have like two opposing views. And I haven't really seen many others where people will kind of tell you their exact artists that they're kind of after.
Yeah.
Or you'll kind of just say genres.
Yeah.
And genres in terms of where you listen to it. Because for me, it's completely dependent on what I'm doing. So say Linkin Park. Yeah, I enjoy Linkin Park. I enjoy Saliva, 3 Days Grace, all these sort of bands which are a little bit harder. But I'm not going to listen to them when I'm reading a book.
Yeah.
Or I'm not going to listen to them when I'm trying to go to sleep. Like, it's just a time and place. So for me, if I had to define it, it's like when I go to the gym or when I'm doing some sort of exercise that I want to listen to music to, it'll be some sort of like that harder rock, hard metal, or some sort of like The Weeknd, Travis Scott, that sort of music.
Yeah.
That's sort of my go-to. And then when I'm trying to like relax, it'll be either classical / just lo-fi, like really soft sort of music. And then I've got my like reading music, which interestingly, and here's an interesting one. So that's sort of my sections, and I haven't varied them too much. So for training, obviously I want something that's like a bit of a higher, I guess, beats per minute. So we can talk a little bit about that later. But I want something that's like a little bit more high amp. It gets me moving, gets me like really focused in training. Then when I'm kind of relaxing, it's good to just have something that's chill. It's sort of in the background. I'm not really, really listening to it, but it's got a nice rhythm to it that allows me to just focus in. But one of the things that I've been trying to find recently is when I've been reading books, how can I amplify the reading of the book? How can I make it even better? And a lot of the times when you can connect, so this goes back to like sort of remembering, you can remember things a lot better when you've got connections to them and you kind of build like a storyline in your mind with it.
Yeah.
One of the best things I've been trying to do is, okay, I'll be reading a book, but for that particular book, I will listen to a particular song type that'll generally be just specific to that book.
Yeah.
And it'll generally be like a song that's repeated for like, it's one of those ones on YouTube that you can find for 10 hours, right? So what I'll normally do is I'll put that and it'll just be playing like sort of on repeat while I'm reading this one book. And what it'll help do is whenever I'm trying to think about something, I'll kind of recall the song itself as part of that book and kind of help cement what I'm listening to.
Yeah.
But I'll also pair it with the type of emotional response I think I'm going to get. So currently reading Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. So the music I'm listening to is
TikTok.
Yeah. Wake up in the morning like I have no bedsheet. So, but it's essentially poor Victor. But so I'm listening there. It's a very somber sort of music that I'm trying to find. So maybe it's sort of like The Weeknd, something else where it's like, it's a little bit softer, a little bit quieter, and makes you a little bit more retrospective, a little bit maybe sadder. It puts you in the right position. But it helps me recall later down the track. So similarly, I've been reading some positive books. For the storybook, I listened to, can't remember what it was, but it was just more of a positive, like hi-fi sort of jazzy sort of music, and it helped me connect to some of the stuff that I was reading there.
Yeah.
So for me, when I say what do you like listening to from a music perspective, it's totally dependent on what I'm doing.
Yeah, for sure.
And I'll ask you another question. Oh, sorry, have you got a question there?
Before you jump on from that. So I've got a couple of examples from that where I guess it's like, and this will get onto maybe another topic, but that can be negatively used as well. That can result in bad outcomes. So here's a couple of little stories for you. So the negative power of doing that when you're doing something that you might not particularly want to recall or enjoy. So I used to actually do this while studying. So if studying for exams, I used to just put on Cat Empire on repeat.
Yeah. Did it make you hate it forever?
Even now, there's like one particular song which has a little bit of tinge of, if I listen to it, it does make me recall being in like the little office room in my parents' house studying for one of the engineering exams. I can't remember which one. It's more like the feeling of it is recreated, which, as far as like something being recreated, it's not the worst thing. But there was times where I had a book, for example, another book which was like just a little bit of a weird book. I guess it recalls the same feeling that I used to get when I was watching Around the Twist. Like it was a little bit too old for me, and it just had some like scary elements in it which made me nervous and awkward and like feel not super good.
Yeah.
This book sort of recreated that same sort of feeling. And I same thing. I think it was still Cat Empire with that. So I almost ruined like, a couple of Cat Empire songs by just listening to repeat while I was reading or doing or studying or whatever. So be careful.
Well, there's also like you take it to the other extreme. There's a lot of instances you can read this up about, people who were tortured, people who whatever else, like, they were treated badly when they were kids. And there was music playing or something else. Well, yeah, it could be noise, but it could also be music. And when you listen to it later in life, it sort of drives that subconscious knowledge of like, oh, I remember when this music but playing, like, and this happened. So it triggers all these bad memories to happen. And you're not even conscious of the fact that it's happening, but then you go, oh, why am I feeling so anxious listening to this and everything else?
Yeah.
So obviously that's the other extreme.
Yeah.
But think about it so let's talk movies, right? Movies with music. Have you ever tried to watch a movie that has no music?
No, but I can imagine it would alter the experience a lot.
It would. So I tried this out because I was listening to something like a video about this. I was like, I'm going to see if I can find like an example of just like a pretty famous snippet of a movie. This one was like one of the fights in 300, right?
Yeah.
So with music and without music. And it changes a lot of it. So I listened to it, I watched first the one with music, and it's just a normal ride, and you can see like it's building up to a crescendo and fighting's happening. But when you watch that again with no music, you lose quite a bit of it.
All you hear is the ooh,
yeah, and it's and it's a little bit like, well, without that bit of music to help you get that oomph of the emotional response of what you should feel like, it takes a lot of it. So I was listening a little bit about it as well, where when you're creating movies or whatever else you may be doing, the use of music, not that you ever think about it as like something that's like in a movie, but it is like pretty critical because you have to have it in the points where you want people to be triggered emotionally in a sad way or in a positive way or whatever else it may be.
For sure.
And I think we all take it. I know there's a couple people out there who are always like, oh, look at the score of this movie. It's like fantastic and it really makes it. I don't think I've ever thought that through. That to be like, oh yeah, the music in this movie was like fantastic, apart from like movies that are specifically about singing or something. Like A Star Is Born. But it's interesting how music, probably not just that, and probably there's other areas in life where, they're in there. They're like amongst life, but you just don't even think about them. But subconsciously, it's like helping you out or detracting from a lot of things.
For sure. Are there any songs which you listen to and instantly make you recall a certain time?
Yes. Ladies and Gentlemen by Saliva. Do you know that song?
No. I was thinking of something else that you were going to say, but
no. Ladies and Gentlemen by Saliva. Oh, right, gotcha. That song always makes me recall, and Non-Point Bullet. Those two songs, for some reason, always makes me recall wrestling, so WWE. It always makes me recall like watching it, like Monday Night Raw at some particular time, and people coming out and like. Even when like in the song, right? So do you know the song I'm talking about?
No.
It's a fairly good song. It's also pretty good for gym. But in this particular song, they say like ladies and gentlemen, good evening. I want your attention, please. And after a bit of a section, they kind of go like, bow, bow, like something happens, right? Like it's like dang, dang. And every time that like it's like bang, bang, the music hits, it instantly triggers for me to like recall like wrestling moves or wrestling hits or like rugby tackle, like some sort of hit, right?
Yeah.
Every single time, like, it never
cool.
changes. It never changes. And I'm like, and I put it on sometimes where I'm like, oh, I know I need to hit like a massive lift here or it's hard. I'm like, this is the song I go to. Same thing happens with Non-Points Bullet. It's the same feeling.
Nice.
What about yourself?
I've got a couple listed here. So one of them is Bonobo, just in general. I think the album's maybe called Kerala or Black Sands.
Yep.
It's two different. Maybe that song's in Black Sands. That just reminds me of travel, man. I used to listen to that while traveling, like in tons of different places. It was sort of my like chill out, nice music to enjoy a view sort of thing.
Yep.
And so doesn't matter where, and it sort of like adds to it each time I do that. So that's one of them. Here's one that you might recognize. Taste.
Yeah,
Do you feel a taste?
Yeah. I thought that was going to come.
So
that just Mexico all over.
Tigger, taste. This was almost like an intentional one. I met you and our friend Joseph from episode 5 in Cancun, and I don't know who found that song. I don't know. It had obviously like
must have been
just came out not too long ago, and like in the apartments we were in Cancun, we just had like the access to YouTube on the TV, and so we'd wake up in the morning and we'd just put
first
music
thing on,
and YouTube would basically be auto suggesting Taste because we listened to it so much.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of songs like Taste, on the way or On My Way.
Yeah.
I always forget by. Do you remember his name? Yeah, whatever. And then there's one more, which is None Shall Pass by A$AP Rock, which is, this was an unintentional one. It was the first time I just moved out of home, I'd gone to Mackay, so I was away from my family. It was like just very turbulent time for me because just tons of things were happening. I had my first proper job, first experience moving into an apartment, first like all these firsts. And it's funny because like this song is very like somber and almost sad in a way, but it's the one which like if I put that on, it just takes me back 7 years to just this one particular time.
Yeah.
So there is definitely the power of music to alter moods. And I wanted to ask you about one of the things you've been doing with your legendary list.
Yes.
Is creating like I don't know, like a mood altering playlist or songs which you can have where you can say like I'm going to intentionally like listen to this and it's going to get me in this mood.
Yeah.
So what's your thoughts on that? Like how are you going to set that out? How intentional are you going to be?
Yeah. So I'll preface it. So first, laying out some bit of science. So positive or sort of happy music or music that makes you feel like upbeat, right? That generally when you listen to that sort of music and whatever that fits for you, what it does is it releases dopamine. So same thing with when you're eating, same thing when you're having sex, dopamine, it generally gets released. Have you ever felt when you're having a really good day, like you already know it's a pretty fun day, and then you listen to a really good song and you feel even better?
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I was sort of reading about this. It's like the amplification sort of those good vibes from music isn't like a limited thing that they found. So you can, even if you're like extremely happy, listening to a song will amplify your feelings. Like it will increase your dopamine no matter what, if you're in that good state. So I was like, oh, it's fantastic. But opposite side of the spectrum, when you're sad or going through tough times, why is it better to listen to sad music as opposed to good music? Because if you listen to good music, you tend to go more towards, I'm kind of already sad and I can see that other people are happy, or I don't want to listen to happy music. But if you listen to a sad song or some sort of sad music or vibe, it actually triggers you to more relate and being like, oh, okay, there's someone out there that's relating to my pain or to my sadness. And it actually makes you ultimately feel better. Yep. Now, getting down to my list. I've got 2 lists under my legendary list. One's positive vibes, one's a chill vibes. So ultimately what I'm trying to...
Where's the negative?
So, no. So this is... So chill vibes is what I consider to be negative. I didn't want to call it like negative vibes, not sad vibes. It's chill vibes.
And
by that, and this is what
sort of like a come down.
Yeah, and so again, what I was sort of trying to do with these lists, with using music, was again, imagine that baseline, imagine 0 is like baseline of emotion, and you can go all the way to a +1. It was like extreme blissfulness and happiness. And -1 is like extreme down points. And I could fluctuate like very high, like say 0.7. And then I could fall to like -0.2 or -0.3 and then go back up. And I could do that like really heavy fluctuations, which is not fun. You want to be probably just like between 0 to 0.5, right? Like that would be like a good little scale until you can push out. Now, so with the music lists, what I tend to do, and this list have a few more things than just music, but predominantly they've got a bit of music. And what I try to do with it intentionally is whether I'm going to the gym. So when I know there's things I want to perk myself up for, or when I'm feeling tired in the mornings, when I don't really want to do things that I want to do, I'll go in there and reach in and already have pre-selected items, whether it's songs that I know, these songs, when I listen to them, giddy up. I'm gonna get sucked into this. I'm gonna be wanting to do it. The other day, just an example, I went to the gym and I did one set and I kind of felt like it was okay. And I was listening to my normal playlist. Then I said, okay. I went into my little positive list, picked out a particular song. It's like, I know this one. And I like 3 minutes of listening to the song. Right after it, I was like, yep, I'm ready to rock and roll. Like, this is awesome. I'm ready. Yeah. So that's sort of stuff that I try to use that list for.
Yeah.
Now, the opposite one, generally it'll be to calm down. So that'll be even if I'm like super negative or slightly too positive, I want to just chill it out. These are more songs or music that it's like, it's a little bit more calming. It's a little bit more reserved. So Rufus the Soul's, forget the name of that particular one. But yeah, you know what I'm talking about. A lot of his stuff, but stuff like that where it's a little bit more calming. The beats are a bit slower. They're a little bit, it's generally trance, but it can be sort of lo-fi. And that music, I've just noticed it like just physically lowers your heart rate. It just allows me to focus a little bit more, help me just kind of like de-stress and just unfocus. So that's been really good to use the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And I'm always building up on it. So to be intentional with it, I don't want it just to have like 2 or 3 things because you're going to cycle through them and all of a sudden just like use them all up. So I'm adding to it all the time as I'm finding like new music or listening to different things. I go, this has to go on this list.
Yeah.
And what I'll tend to do is I'll kind of cycle through them. I'll go like one or the next one. So I'll have 10 or 15 different ones that I can cycle through. So it'll be quite a while before I get to like that other one again that I've re-listened.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah, I don't think music plays as big a part of my life, maybe potentially as it does for you.
Well, let's take an example of fitness because you don't use music at all when you train.
Nah.
You prefer it to be quiet and sort of nature.
I think that's why I enjoy the gym in small doses.
Yep.
But there was a period where, all the time going and hearing just whatever crap was on the TVs or the radio there. I think that did start to bother me after a while. So that was probably one of the things, a little addition that helped me to go, I'd rather much prefer.
Why no headphones?
Go outdoors. Oh, that's just getting in the way. They're annoying.
Yeah. Okay. Right.
Yeah. Plus, it's not like I was annoyed because they weren't playing the type of music I wanted on there. It was just I just didn't want the sound, to be honest. So that's one area in my life where I don't know how. What do you think percentage of people listen to music when they're training? Or it's not,
I'd say 80%.
80%. Okay. I don't think it would be that high.
If you go to a gym, check out the amount of people with like headphones on.
Yeah,
it's quite a lot.
Yeah,
it's quite a lot. Yeah. Unless you're there with friends who then you're talking to, it's like a very large amount of people who are listening to music. Yeah. But so I mean, for me, like it's I also as well, right? As much as I can listen to music and it's enjoyable. I'll sometimes do it. Like yesterday when we went to train, I didn't do it without any music, and it's kind of like fine as well. But for me, it's more when I push at the very upper boundaries. So if I'm just going in there and doing a training session, which to me is like a 70% sort of session to maybe 80%, whether it's music or no music, like I can do it both. I can knock them out totally fine. So to give exact figures, like let's say I go in there to military press 90 kilos, 100 kilos. Yeah. I could probably do that without music. And with music, without music, it's like I can work myself up to that, blah, blah, blah. But I think if I was to go pushing beyond that, if I'm going like 110, 120, without music, there's going to have to be some either it's like a really great day or I've been training up to it or I'm already like inwardly like pumped up to do this. Whereas with music, it'll be a little bit easier to pump myself up to do it. It'll be like one of those songs and I'll be like, here we go, like I'm going to do this. And it just kind of helps out. So for me, it's at those extremities, which it helps, especially when it comes to fitness.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
But I can't give that example, I guess, to someone who would be just starting at the gym. But if that's the thing that's making you go to the gym, then hell yeah, like use it for that purpose.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I don't know. The power of music doesn't have the capabilities to add 10 kg to my bench press for me, unfortunately.
Yep.
But whatever.
Oh man, I've had some like wild times on music. Like I'll give you an example with the bench press.
Yeah.
Where there was like I will generally be going in and benching whatever. I'll get up to a 140, maybe a 150 for like a bit of fun, and maybe a 120 for like 6 reps. And I remember one time being at the gym a couple of weeks ago where I was just pumped up, and this song came. It might have been Ladies and Gentlemen. I was just like, my eyes just like dialed into this bench. And I both worked up to like a 157.5 bench, but I also did 120 for like 13 reps or something like that. And I was just like, and I just felt like you didn't even feel it. I was just so like in the moment with the music. So it can make some massive differences.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I've never had any huge alterings like that.
Yep.
Do you want to learn some facts about music?
Let's do it. I want to get some facts.
Perfect pitch. Do you know what perfect pitch is?
Well, we heard it earlier. I'm not going to subject you.
No explanation.
Yeah, and I'm not going to subject you guys to it again. But yes, tell me about it.
So perfect pitch is it's basically where you can hear a note and replicate it, or not even necessarily replicate it, but hear a note and say what it is. So, someone produces a note, A sharp or whatever, in whatever scale. And you can just go, yep, that's an A sharp in this scale. Like you don't need any external reference points to it other than having once heard, the gamut, the range of all of them. So it's in about 1 in every 10,000 people, which is interesting. And apparently there is like sort of 50% genetic component to it as well. So like it sort of can be passed down a little bit. But even if you have it, doesn't necessarily mean you can execute on it perfectly. So you're still going to make mistakes and whatnot. So even if, you hear an A sharp and you can say, oh, that's an A sharp, doesn't mean
whatever it is. Yeah.
I mean, that was probably an A sharp. So I was actually asking my mum about this because my mum was a music teacher for however many, 30 plus years. Yep. And she also directed a barbershop choir for the same amount of time. And so she's like fantastic singer. She can just hit notes perfectly. But she doesn't have perfect pitch. I think she was saying was maybe like one person in her choir who could get it as well, who had it. And yeah, it sounds like just an interesting thing. And I was asking her like, okay, do you wish you had it? Because it would have, saved a lot of time. Like you just wouldn't have had to practice as much. So it was like, it would have been good. Like would have made things a little bit easier, but it doesn't make you a good singer. You still need to put in the practice. You still need to know, when to hit certain notes, when to stop, how to harmonize with the rest of the choir, blah, blah, blah. So that was just an interesting little thing, having the ability that it's just so funny that, 1 in 10,000 people just has this ability to hit it or to know perfectly what which does help. Is. Yeah. And it's approximately only, I think like 10% of musicians have it. So
as well. Yeah, okay.
So it's like, even if you have this thing, it doesn't mean you're going to be the best musician or whatever. It's only 10% have it.
Here's another interesting one. So did you know that, music generally will trigger every part of your brain?
Okay.
Which is interesting. So one of the things I was reading about was they found there was some individuals who had lost complete cognitive ability to read. Like they could not read at all, newspapers, anything. But they could still read music. And some of the reasoning behind it was because they've strapped people into, CAT machines or whatever, or MRIs, and check the brain sort of function. And the entirety of your brain will be firing, to at least to some degree, when you're listening to music. So I guess the idea behind there of why you could read is because you're using maybe other parts of your brain that you wouldn't be using when you're just reading to try to read music. Similarly, they were finding that people who couldn't even do up their button jacket because they were that disabled in that, in their functions, could still play the piano.
Yeah.
So it's stuff like that where, because you're using more parts of your brain, it can kind of assist you do those tasks which you wouldn't normally be able to do without it.
Yeah.
Which I thought was quite interesting.
Yeah. Here's another fun one. Loud music can make you drink faster.
Ooh, from 2008.
Yeah,
This is a study from 2008. Yeah.
And it just got me thinking. So basically, it was a study like in bars.
Yeah.
They found that turning up the music would actually make people drink faster. I'm guessing it's because it was too loud to talk. So what else are you going to do other than drink?
Yeah.
Like that's my sort of reasoning for it. But just with that being said, there's a caution, a learning for the viewers. If you're in church and you're like right near the organ and they're playing and they bring around the sacrament and the little nip of wine, be careful. Because if they're playing loud, there is I'm going to say like 200% probability that you're just going to, grab the bottle of wine or whatever and just down it. So be careful.
Don't get absolutely smashed at your local church. I found, okay, this is a pretty general one, but do you know the first and only band to play on all 7 continents?
I do.
Yeah, Metallica. They came out recently with the latest album, S&M 2. I hadn't listened to them for a long time, and this particular album is them doing some of the normal songs with the San Francisco orchestra or some type of orchestra, which was quite good. I really enjoyed it, but what it made me do is go and listen to old Metallica music.
Yeah, and
then I was like, oh man, I've missed out a lot of these. I've been adding a couple of those older school ones to my list, like Enter Sandman and Unforgiven 3 and a couple of others, When the Bells Ring, or When the Bells Toll, or whatever it might be called.
Yep.
It was interesting. It like the connection of like going and then listening to a particular song, and then I was like, oh no, I want to listen to this music now a lot more, and then
you got
making my list. I was
got to
like,
be careful. You can go down some
rabbit holes, some rabbit holes
for sure.
Oh, do you know the song? Actually, I was just trying to think about it. You know the song that goes, and at the first it's a little bit like,
yeah, the Russian one.
When you first listen to that, I think people get a little bit annoyed and they're like, what's this? What's going on? But when you listen to it more and more and more, it's like, this is...
it's not a bad song.
And it's like, it's actually quite good.
Combining it with the video of the guy singing it is top notch.
Another couple of ones like I found just interesting, and you might have already found these ones, like Mozart sold more CDs in 2016 than Beyonce.
No.
That was quite interesting to me. I was like, wow. So I would have thought Beyonce would still be selling quite a bit, but Mozart sold more. Nice. So classical sort
of... I think that's just because old people don't know how to use streaming
CDs. Yeah. And what is the longest song title ever?
I have no idea.
All right. So for everyone out there playing at home, it is Hoagies Carmichael's 1943. I'm a cranky old Yank in a clanky old tank on the streets of Yokohama with my Honolulu mama doing those beto flat on my Cedo Hirohito blues. Is the longest song title ever. So Hoagie Carmichael in 1943. Good joke, mate. You put your entire lyrics into your freaking song title. So, I like that though. I read it and I was like, okay, it's kind of like...
Very good joke.
It kind of makes you like want to potentially listen to the song to be like, what's it all about?
Yep. Nice. All right, to finish this off,
I've
got a little hypothetical for you. I know I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on it.
All right.
If you had to attempt to be the biggest, the most well-known, the most famous musician in 20 years' time, where would you invest your time and energy? And
that's
how
easy,
would you
man.
go about it?
Easy.
Yeah?
Get a song on TikTok that goes viral.
Okay.
My first take would be listen to a couple of TikTok things of like what's making people use them on TikTok. And then so for me, obviously I'm not like an expert at this, but
20 years time.
So what I'm saying is I'd make a couple of songs that make people do a lot of dance moves, like really quick dance moves. It can be like raunchy, it can be whatever. Just think of, try to put out 4 or 5 hits that people on TikTok are going to pick up. And that will initially create, and if you can do that, what it'll create is, now a couple of million people now know who you are and you've created songs. From that, I try to leverage that and create a couple more specifically for TikTok for that use, for that medium. Now, you got to remember, these people who are using it there are like 14, 15, 16 years old. In 20 years' time, when they're in their 30s, they might be able to recall like, that was that person from TikTok, blah, blah. So first I'd start at that point.
Okay.
And what I would then try to transition into is using that leverage of a little bit of popularity, start connecting with other artists on the platform. So I'll be like, one of the biggest ones there is Jason Derulo. So I try to connect with him and a couple of others to be like, hey, maybe we should do like a collab and do something and do a collab here or whatever it may be. So leverage collabs with songs.
Yep.
And then and only then would I say, okay, like burst out and do your own sort of music that you think is good and use the leverage of that.
Okay. So that's an interesting strategy of how you do it. So what I was really trying to get at is what type of genre, what type of music or creative, so for example, would you be more inclined to, sort of try and get your vocals up to a really high level? Do you think vocals in the future might not be as important as potentially being able to really master electronic music to a certain degree? Do you think, you talked about collabs with people. Is it better to focus on a genre of music that's more easily able to connect to different, styles and whatnot?
Yeah. I'd say vocals would be less for me. I'd say, okay, I'd probably focus less on vocals.
Yeah.
More on the actual, probably electronic music. Yeah, probably electronic. I think there'll always be, the opportunity and the range for having any type of genre, whether it's vocals or instrumental or whatever it may be. I think I'd probably try to go down the path of sort of electronic / like high beat sort of things where, again, it can be used for dancing or it can be used for like a range of things. That would be my go-to.
Okay. See, for me, I'm the opposite way. So I was trying to think, okay, like, some of the biggest artists, I can't really say who's the biggest now, but, Michael Jackson, Whitney Houston level of just like popularity and fame.
Yep.
Me personally, I probably would try and just develop my voice to a very, very high degree, and then, have some little sort of quirk to it. Maybe sort of like, so Sia, for example, who, she blew up hugely, where she had that sort of singing style where she managed to like make her voice break. Like thinking of like, I'm swinging on the chandelier, and then it's chandelier. But she's got that ability to like sort of make it sound like she's singing so hard that her voice is cracking and like the emotion is so much, but it's like done in a very controlled way as well. So I personally would probably not focus that much on the actual genres. I would just try and, you're sort of stuck with whatever voice you got, but you can, one, be able to sing to a perfect pitch every single time.
Yep.
And then, add little variations to it or little differences in the singing style that I think could capture. So that's how I would personally go about it.
Okay.
As far as genres, like in 20 years' time, I think acoustics is still just going to be as big now. Like, some person with a guitar playing will be just as big as, whatever the next version of dubstep is or things like that. So
I think I think the genres, there'll always be like love for at least people out there. There'll be some niche that's still like that particular thing or whatever it may be.
And like, let's just imagine, so like, say the whole of Africa gets connected to the internet with Elon Musk's thing in the skies, whatever it is.
Starlink.
Starlink, that's a whole continent, so that'll get opened up to, the ability to stream and whatnot. So I wouldn't be like, trying to restrict myself to, English technical, I don't know, digital stuff, when maybe
it could be
the next biggest thing will be like an infusion of African and vocals or something.
Yeah.
So
have you heard African French dubstep?
I might have heard little bits of this. Yeah.
Look it up, people. It's actually quite good.
Yeah.
So, all right.
Nice.
That has been episode 83 for music. If you want to hear some more dulcet tones, if you want to hear us talking absolute rubbish, if you want to hear us talking about some topics, if you want to hear us talk about absolutely everything and anything, what I'm going to say is tune in to the videos. Go to YouTube. I'm looking at the camera right now. I'm telling you, subscribe and check us out. But if it isn't YouTube, which is, I'm saying primarily if you want to connect, you want to comment, you want to do whatever, go there. Where else can they find us? Where else should they check out?
Insta. Because you'll still see some videos on there. You'll see some little posts announcing when what is being announced on the day. 5 p.m. daily.
5 p.m. daily.
Australian Eastern Standard Time.
Yep.
And you'll find those there. And look, if you leave a message there, that's probably where we'll be the quickest to get back to you.
That is true.
I'm not guaranteeing a time limit, but I will say probably within an hour you'll get a message back from us.
Yeah. Unless it's like midnight for us, and then you might have to wait.
Yeah, then you have to wait.
Yeah.
Can't be greedy.
But I will say, don't be shy of contacting us through other means. So Facebook, someone left a comment the other day that was suggesting a couple of things that we can improve. Noted.
Agreed.
We are changing. We are doing some
same.
things.
If you want to send it an email, meremortalsinfo@gmail.com.
That's right. We don't use full professional email because we are mere mortals and we don't need that right now. Ladies and gentlemen, that's been music. I hope you have enjoyed. One out.
Kyrin out.